Hello. Hi, Nick. I'm glad that you could be here in person for the last Frankenstein episode. It's going to be sad, I think. And also not very sad leaving poor Victor behind. I've got two cats staring at me. Flora is sitting up on the thing where my diffuser / umbrella with cloth on it is tied to, and Niobe's beneath it. Yes, I told Josh that my next one was going to be a Chuck Tingle book and that it was a secret, and he was like, "It's not a secret. You said that on one of your videos," and I was like, "Oh well, okay, then it's a surprise just for me then, because I'll forget about it by the next time." Hey Danny, how are you? I'm hoping to do a Chuck Tingle one next. I don't know which one. But lady's choice. Evelyn can choose. So we're actually in the middle of a chapter, but it was a really, really long one. We've just finished Frankenstein, Victor's story, which has taken a week. Hi Jessie, how are you? It's taken a week to tell this story, and the captain of the ship is just listening to this entire thing because he thinks Victor is so hot. Yeah, they might be, but I feel like I want to dive into the awkwardness. Like, that traversing that awkwardness with you guys might be something very funny, or even a little bit funny. Ugh, Colin Robinson. It's like, yeah, some people really are just Colin Robinson, and there's not a lot we can do about it. Except be grateful that we're not Colin Robinson. Hey, Pan and Scan. Good lord, we got 6 people here. That's like almost everybody. Crazy. I guess it's for the big finale and everything. So yeah, he's just listened. The ship's captain, what's his face? He's just listened to Victor's story. He thinks Victor's so hot, so we let him talk to him for a week. No, never be Colin Robinson. Ever. People like that. Oh, is he? Oh, that sucks. Well, I can't really put it off. I would have if I'd known. But, John, when you watch this in the future, I hope you enjoy it. So John and Josh are missed, and their presence, their absence is noted. And it's sad, but they're here in our hearts. The fuck is that? Oh, nothing. So, we're all caught up. There wasn't a lot to catch up on, you know. Victor's father died of like natural causes, I think, and yeah, New Zealand's free of COVID. We went into lockdown. I can't remember. That was level 4, where everyone had to stay in their houses pretty much. And now we're at level 1, where businesses have reopened and you don't have to go into a shop, like wait outside a shop like it's a club, so that, there's 12 people in there and you have to wait for someone to come out before you can go in, and distancing, and there's still hand sanitizer everywhere, but people aren't really required to use it before they come into a shop or whatever. So yeah, I'm so glad. I mean, I don't vote Labour. I'm not a big fan of Labour, but the way they've handled the lockdown is incredible. It makes me very, very grateful that this didn't happen under a national government. National is our Conservative government. Labour is our more left side government. I think they're more like centre, just the centre. But the Greens are getting more and more seats every election, which is pretty cool. Sorry, I can't make my phone go on its side. Yes, it is not free of Colin. There's a real Colin Robinson that I know of. Yeah, unions are important. Even I know that, and I do not understand eclipses no matter how many times they're explained to me or with what props. I'm just like, yeah, I know they happen. I think a wolf is eating the moon, but I mean, I can explain that to you really simply. A wolf eats the moon. I don't need props and like a tennis ball going around a fucking... Don't do that. I'm busy. My adult stepson scratching the couch. Okay. Frankenstein. We are still on chapter... Oh yeah, there's a for real Colin Robinson that I know of who exists in this country. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But that guy sucks and he should be in jail for being terrible as a person. Just so no one has to interact with him. I guess jail isn't the word I want. I guess it's more like island? Isolation bubble? Something like that. Oh, we could call the creature Colin. I wanted to call him Jason because Victor's always Jason him. Niobe! Want to say hi to the people? Do you want to say hi to the people? No, you want to go outside immediately. She really wants to go outside. Okay, here we go. Bloody hell, she's big. Yes. Yes, that was Niobe and Flora's playing King of the Castle. So I don't know what chapter this actually is because we stopped in the middle of a chapter. It was really, really long. But we are back to Captain Robert somebody, I believe. And he's writing letters to his sister Margaret. So, Frankenstein, whichever chapter this is. My beloved sister, September 2nd. I write to you, encompassed by peril and ignorant whether I am ever doomed to see again dear England and the dearer friends that inhabit it. I am surrounded by mountains of ice which admit of no escape and threaten every moment to crush my vessel. The brave fellows whom I have persuaded to be my companions look towards me for aid, but I have none to bestow. There is something terribly appalling in our situation, yet my courage and hopes do not desert me. Yet it is terrible to reflect that the lives of all these men are endangered through me. If we are lost, my mad schemes are the cause. Yes, it is a patchwork of story. Oh, milady. That was Flora, little cow. And what, Margaret, will be the state of your mind? You will not hear of my destruction, and you will anxiously await my return. Years will pass, and you will have visitings of despair, and yet be tortured by hope. Oh, my beloved sister, the sickening failing of your heartfelt expectations is, in prospect, more terrible to me than my own death. But you have a husband and lovely children. You may be happy. Heaven bless you and make you so. Captain What's-His-Name has learned a lot from listening to Victor. He's learned a lot about drama. I think it would be funnier if Margaret wasn't even close with her brother. He just couldn't think of anyone else to write to. My unfortunate guest regards me with the tenderest compassion. He endeavours to fill me with hope and talks as if life were a possession which he valued. He reminds me how often the same accidents have happened to other navigators who have attempted this sea, and in spite of myself, he fills me with cheerful auguries. Even the sailors feel the power of his eloquence. When he speaks, they no longer despair. He rouses their energies, and while they hear his voice, they believe these vast mountains of ice are molehills which will vanish before the resolutions of man. These feelings are transitory. Each day of expectation delayed fills them with fear, and I almost dread a mutiny caused by this despair. Yeah, no shit, you're trapped in the ice, you dumb fucking idiot. Yeah, it's like, there's another letter from me. I don't know this guy. I don't have a brother. Oh, dear Margaret, you may yet be happy. Probably not, because I'll always be scared that he survived and he's going to come to my house. September 5th, in the same letter. A scene has just passed of such uncommon interest that, although it is highly probable that these papers may never reach you, yet I cannot forbear recording it. We are still surrounded by mountains of ice, still in imminent danger of being crushed in their conflict. The cold is excessive, and many of my unfortunate comrades have already found a grave amidst the scene of desolation. Well, leave it alone. If you find a grave, leave it alone. No manners. Frankenstein has daily declined in health. A feverish fire still glimmers in his eyes, but he is exhausted, and when suddenly roused to any exertion, he speedily sinks again into apparent lifelessness. I mentioned in my last letter the fears I entertained of a mutiny. This morning, as I sat watching the wan countenance of my friend, his eyes half closed and his limbs hanging listlessly. Sorry, I'm picturing him in a hammock with his arms and legs just hanging off the sides. I was roused by half a dozen of the sailors who demanded admission into the cabin. They entered and their leader addressed me. He told me that he and his companions had been chosen by the other sailors to come in deputation to me, to make me a requisition which in justice I could not refuse. We were immured in ice and should probably never escape, but they feared that if, as was possible, the ice should dissipate and a free passage be opened, I should be rash enough to continue my voyage and lead them into fresh dangers, after they might happily have surmounted this. They insisted, therefore, that I should engage with the solemn promise that if the vessel should be freed, I would instantly direct my course southwards. Ugh. This fucking guy, honestly. This speech troubled me. I don't think you should be troubled by the fact that your employees are clever and want to stay alive. I had not despaired, nor had I yet conceived the idea of returning if set free. Yet could I, in justice, or even in possibility, refuse this demand? I hesitated before I answered. When Frankenstein, who had at first been silent, in his hammock with his arms and legs hanging off the edges, and indeed appeared hardly to have force enough to attend, now roused himself. His eyes sparkled and his cheeks flushed with momentary vigour. Turning towards the men, he said, "What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this a glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Not because the way was smooth and placid as a southern sea, but because it was full of dangers and terror, because at every new incident your fortitude was to be called forth and your courage exhibited, because danger and death surrounded it, and these you were to brave and overcome. For this was it an honourable undertaking. You were hereafter to be hailed as the benefactors of your species, your names adored as belonging to brave men who encountered death for honour and the benefit of mankind. And now, behold, with the first imagination of danger, or, if you will, the first mighty and terrific trial of your courage, you shrink away and are content to be handed down as men who had not strength enough to endure cold and peril, and so, poor souls, they were chilly and returned to their warm firesides. Why, that requires not this preparation. You need not have come thus far and dragged your captain to the shame of a defeat merely to prove yourselves cowards. Oh, be men. or be more than men. Be steady to your purposes and firm as a rock. This ice is not made of such stuff as your hearts may be. It is mutable and cannot withstand you if you say that it shall not. Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows. Return as heroes who have fought and conquered and who know not what it is to turn their backs on the foe. Oh, Victor, how did that work out for anybody ever? You know which guys I've heard of? The Franklin expedition. Because they found their bodies and they were really well preserved. Oh yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he's like, I'm going to die of hubris in like 3 hours. I'd really love for all these guys to die of hubris as well. Just don't want it to be just me. It's so embarrassing. You're all right. He spoke this with a voice so modulated to the different feelings expressed in his speech, with an eye so full of lofty design and heroism, that can you wonder that these men were moved? They looked at one another and were unable to reply. I spoke. I told them to retire and consider of what had been said, that I would not lead them farther north if they strenuously desired the contrary, but that I hoped that with reflection their courage would return. I know! And a bunch of them have already died and been buried here. They retired, and I turned towards my friend, but he was sunk in languor and almost deprived of life, on his hammock with his arms and legs hanging over the side. It's just how I picture it, but it's really good. How all this will terminate, I know not, but I had rather die than return shamefully, my purpose unfulfilled. Yet I fear such will be my fate. The men, unsupported by ideas of glory and honour, can never willingly continue to endure their present hardships. I have a feeling that something to do with the glory and honour is partly due to the captain not doing the duties of all of the men. I mean, he's just hanging out in his cabin with Victor, being told stories every day. I mean, gives you a lot of time to think about glory and honour, probably. September 7th. The die is cast. I have consented to return if we are not destroyed. Thus are my hopes blasted by cowardice and indecision. I come back ignorant and disappointed. It requires more philosophy than I possess to bear this injustice with patience. I could be right. I'm usually right. I've been right. One time I was right. September 12th. It is past. I am returning to England. I have lost my hopes of utility and glory. I have lost my friend. But I will endeavour to detail these bitter circumstances to you, my dear sister, and while I am wafted towards England and towards you, I will not despond. September 9th, the ice began to move, and roarings like thunder were heard at a distance as the island split and cracked in every direction. We were in the most imminent peril, but as we could only remain passive, my chief attention was occupied by my unfortunate guest, whose illness increased in such a degree that he was entirely confined to his bed. Yeah, like a little bit of rat poison, pretty good for you. It's not human poison, duh. The ice cracked behind us and was driven with force towards the north. A breeze sprang from the west, and on the 11th, passage towards the south became perfectly free. When the sailors saw this, and that their return to their native country was apparently assured, a shout of tumultuous joy broke from them, loud and long continued. Frankenstein, who was dozing, awoke and asked the cause of the tumult. They shout, I said, because they will soon return to England. Do you, then, really return? Alas, yes, I cannot withstand their demands. I cannot lead them unwillingly to danger, and I must return. Do so, if you will, but I will not. You may give up your purpose, but mine is assigned to me by heaven, and I dare not. I am weak, but surely the spirits who assist my vengeance will endow me with sufficient strength. Saying this, he endeavoured to spring from the bed, but the exertion was too great for him. He fell back and fainted. I'm an angel, I mustn't be vexed. Vexed angel, yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking, Grandpa Joe, will you come with me to the chocolate factory? Go to the chocolate factory? Why, you guys might lie here in this big bed we all sleep in, but this ticket was assigned to us by heaven, and I dare not. I am weak, but surely the spirits who assist my tour of a chocolate factory will endow me with sufficient strength. Do, I'm Grandpa Joe. I've been a burden on this family for many, many years, but now I'm fine. How would that even work? Like, in order to not have, like, your muscles all atrophied and stuff, as soon as Mrs. Bucket goes to work, those fucking grandparents, they must be, like, doing calisthenics and yoga and just, they're in tip-top condition. No wonder they sleep all the time. Just working out all day. Anyway, sorry. Victor Frankenstein just fainted. There we go. I thought I saw cat eyes. It was long before he was restored, and I often thought that life was entirely extinct. At length he opened his eyes. He breathed with difficulty and was unable to speak. The surgeon gave him a composing draught and ordered us to leave him undisturbed. In the meantime, he told me that my friend had certainly not many hours to live. His sentence was pronounced, and I could only grieve and be patient. I sat by his bed, watching him from a distance of 1 centimetre. His eyes were closed, and I thought that he slept. But presently he called to me in a feeble voice, and bidding me come near, said, "Alas, the strength I relied on is gone. I feel that I shall soon die." I'm sorry, I still think he's faking everything because he's a drama queen. Also, the captain being 1 centimetre from Victor is obviously not in the actual text. I just think it would be funny. Alas, the strength I relied on is gone. I feel that I shall soon die, and that he, my enemy and persecutor, may still be in being. Think not, Walton, that in the last moments of my existence I feel that burning hatred and ardent desire of revenge I once expressed, but I feel myself justified in desiring the death of my adversary. During these last days I have been occupied in examining my past conduct, nor do I find it blamable. In a fit of enthusiastic madness, I created a rational creature, and was bound towards him to assure, as far as was in my power, his happiness and well-being. This was my duty, but there was another still paramount to that. My duties towards the beings of my own species had greater claims to my attention, because they included a greater proportion of happiness or misery. Urged by this view, I refused, and I did right in refusing, to create a companion for the first creature. He showed unparalleled malignity and selfishness and evil. He destroyed my friends. He devoted to destruction beings who possessed exquisite sensations, happiness, and wisdom. Nor do I know where this thirst for vengeance may end. Miserable himself that he may render no other wretched, he ought to die. The task of his destruction was mine, but I have failed. When actuated by selfish and vicious motives, I asked you to undertake my unfinished work, and I renew this request now, when I am only induced by reason and virtue. This is bullshit. Victor's. He's excusing himself, everything he's done. I hope he does show up. That'd be quite cool. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I know that I started eating all of your birthday cake when I was just being compelled to do it by, greed and unkindness. But when I really thought about it, I philosophized it to myself so that this was actually kind of a gift for you in a way, and that's why I ate the second half of your birthday cake. Yeah, okay. Good one, Victor. Yet I cannot ask you to renounce your country and friends to fulfill this task. And now that you are returning to England, you will have little chance of meeting with him. But the consideration of these points, and the well balancing of what you may esteem your duties, I leave to you. My judgment and ideas are already disturbed by the near approach of death. I dare not ask you to do what I think right, for I may still be misled by passion. Yeah, he's faking self-awareness. That he should live to be an instrument of mischief disturbs me. In other respects, this hour, when I momentarily expect my release, is the only happy one which I have enjoyed for several years. The forms of the beloved dead flit before me, and I hasten to their arms. Farewell, Walton. Seek happiness and tranquillity, and avoid ambition, even if it be only the apparently innocent one of distinguishing yourself in science and discoveries. Yet why do I say this? I have myself been blasted in these hopes, yet another may succeed. Oh, Misled by Passion is. It would be a good title for my autobiography if I hadn't already decided on extremely proud and incredibly gross. I think that's a pretty good one. God, Victor changes his opinions all the time. It's like, how dare you guys not want to have the courage to go all the way to the tippy top of the world and find Father Christmas? I can't remember what they're trying to do. And now he's just like, oh, don't be misled. Don't be ambitious. Go to England and forget me. But never forget that I was the saddest and most complicated man in the world. Yeah, Victor does believe he's an angel. He has no particular. His voice became fainter as he spoke, and at length, exhausted by his effort, he sank into silence. About half an hour afterwards, he attempted again to speak, but was unable. He pressed my hand feebly, and his eyes closed forever, while the irradiation of a gentle smile passed away from his lips. Margaret, what comment can I make on the untimely extinction of this glorious spirit? What can I say that would enable you to understand the depth of my sorrow? All that I should express will be inadequate and feeble. My tears flow. My mind is overshadowed by a cloud of disappointment. But I journey towards England, and I may there find consolation. I am interrupted. What do these sounds portend? It is midnight. The breeze blows fairly, and the watch on deck scarcely stir. Again there is a sound of a human voice, but hoarser. It comes from the cabin, where the remains of Frankenstein still lie. I must arise and examine. Good night, my sister. I jumped during that paragraph because I heard a sound outside. Hello, madam. Yeah, Robert's super, super gay for Victor. Like, oh, Margaret, how can I explain it to you? I'm gay for Victor. I wanted to be gay boyfriends with him, but he died. And I had to listen to that really long story for, like, nothing. Yeah, 7 people. That's so many. Great God, what a scene has just taken place. He's sitting back down here. Yeah, it's found footage. It's It's found footage that's just a really long interview. And then a guy writing about the interview. What a scene has just taken place. I am yet dizzy with the remembrance of it. I hardly know whether I shall have the power to detail it. Yet the tale which I have recorded would be incomplete without this final and wonderful catastrophe. I entered the cabin where lay the remains of my ill-fated and admirable friend. Over him hung a form which I cannot find words to describe, gigantic in stature, yet uncouth and distorted in its proportions. As he hung over the coffin, his face was concealed by long locks of ragged hair, but one vast hand was extended, in colour and apparent texture like that of a mummy. When he heard the sound of my approach, he ceased to utter exclamations of grief and horror, and sprung towards the window. Never did I behold a vision so horrible as his face, of such loathsome yet appalling hideousness. I shut my eyes involuntarily and endeavoured to recollect what were my duties with regard to this destroyer. I called on him to stay. Yeah, Strangly Hands is crying. And he's like, Robert's like, oh, it was so weird. I tried to remember what Victor had asked me to do, and I asked him if he would stay for a cup of tea. I think that was what he wanted. He paused, looking on me with wonder, and again turning towards the lifeless form of his creator, he seemed to forget my presence, and every feature and gesture seemed instigated by the wildest rage of some uncontrollable passion. That is also my victim, he exclaimed. In his murder my crimes are consummated. The miserable series of my being is wound to its close. Frankenstein, generous and self-devoted being, what does it avail that I now ask thee to pardon me? I, who irretrievably destroyed thee by destroying all thou lovedst. Alas, he is cold. He cannot answer me. In the words of whoever sang that, it's too late to apologize for both of you. His voice seemed suffocated, and my first impulses, which had suggested to me the duty of obeying the dying request of my friend and destroying his enemy, were now suspended by a mixture of curiosity and compassion. I approached this tremendous being. I dared not again raise my eyes to his face. There was something so scaring and unearthly in his ugliness. Hello. Yeah, my unearthly darling. What are you doing? Oh, it's Flora's cameo. Yeah? You here to talk to the people? What? Well, she's here now. What? And some more. You want some more? She's my sweetie. I attempted to speak, but the words died away on my lips. The monster continued to utter wild and incoherent self-reproaches. Yeah, she loves... I don't know how she knows what a webcam is, but she wants to show her butt to it. So, technology's come a long way. At length I gathered resolution to address him in a pause of the tempest of his passion. Your repentance, I said, is now superfluous. If you had listened to the voice of conscience and heeded the stings of remorse before you had urged your diabolical vengeance to this extremity, Frankenstein would yet have lived. He's going to blame the creature. And do you dream? Said the demon. Do you think that I was then dead to agony and remorse? He continued, pointing to the corpse, he suffered not in the consummation of the deed. Oh, not the 10,000th portion of the anguish that was mine during the lingering detail of its execution. A frightful selfishness hurried me on, while my heart was poisoned with remorse. Think you that the groans of Clerval were music to my ears? My heart was fashioned to be susceptible of love and sympathy, and when wrenched by misery to vice and hatred, it did not endure the violence of the change without torture such as you cannot even imagine. After the murder of Clerval, I returned to Switzerland, heartbroken and overcome. I pitied Frankenstein. My pity amounted to horror. I abhorred myself. But when I discovered that he, the author at once of my existence and of its unspeakable torments, dared to hope for happiness, that while he accumulated wretchedness and despair upon me, he sought his own enjoyment in feelings and passions, from the indulgence of which I was forever barred, then impotent envy and bitter indignation filled me with an insatiable thirst for vengeance. I recollected my threat and resolved that it should be accomplished. I knew that I was preparing for myself a deadly torture, but I was the slave and not the master of an impulse which I detested, yet could not disobey. Yet when she died, nay, then I was not miserable. I had cast off all feeling, subdued all anguish, to riot in the excess of my despair. Evil thenceforth became my good. Urged thus far, I had no choice but to adapt my nature to an element which I had willingly chosen. The completion of my demoniacal design became an insatiable passion. And now it has ended. There is my last victim. I was at first touched by the expressions of his misery, yet when I called to mind what Frankenstein had said of his powers of eloquence and persuasion, and when I again cast my eyes on the lifeless form of my friend, indignation was rekindled within me. "Wretch," I said, "it is well that you come here to whine over the desolation that you have made. You throw a torch into a pile of buildings, and when they are consumed, you sit among the ruins and lament the fall. Hypocritical fiend! If he whom you mourn still lived, still would he be the object, again would he become the prey of your accursed vengeance. It is not pity that you feel. You lament only because the victim of your malignity is withdrawn from your power." Yeah, we're all dicks, basically. "Oh, it is not thus, interrupted the being. "Yet such must be the impression conveyed to you by what appears to be the purport of my actions. Yet I seek not a fellow feeling in my misery. No sympathy may I ever find. When I first sought it, it was the love of virtue, the feelings of happiness and affection with which my whole being overflowed, that I wished to be participated. But now that virtue has become to me a shadow, and that happiness and affection are turned into bitter and loathing despair. In what should I seek for sympathy? I am content to suffer alone while my sufferings shall endure. When I die, I am well satisfied that abhorrence and opprobrium should load my memory. Once my fancy was soothed with dreams of virtue, of fame, and of enjoyment. Once I falsely hoped to meet with beings who, pardoning my outward form, would love me for the excellent qualities which I was capable of unfolding. I was nourished with high thoughts of honor and devotion. But now crime has degraded me beneath the meanest animal. No guilt, no mischief, no malignity, no misery can be found comparable to mine. When I run over the frightful catalogue of my sins, I cannot believe that I am the same creature whose thoughts were once filled with sublime and transcendent visions of the beauty and the majesty of goodness. But it is even so. The fallen angel becomes a malignant devil. Yet even that enemy of God and man had friends and associates in his desolation. I am alone. You, who call Frankenstein your friend, seem to have a knowledge of my crimes and his misfortunes. But in the detail which he gave you of them, he could not sum up the hours and months of misery which I endured wasting in impotent passions. For while I destroyed his hopes, I did not satisfy my own desires. They were forever ardent and craving, Still I desired love and fellowship, and I was still spurned. Was there no injustice in this? Am I to be thought the only criminal when all humankind sinned against me? Why do you not hate Felix, who drove his friend from his door with contumely? Why do you not execrate the rustic who sought to destroy the saviour of his child? Nay, these are virtuous and immaculate beings. I, the miserable and the abandoned, am an abortion, to be spurned at and kicked and trampled on. Even now my blood boils at the recollection of this injustice. But it is true that I am a wretch. I have murdered the lovely and the helpless. I have strangled the innocent as they slept, and grasped to death his throat who never injured me or any other living thing. I have devoted my Creator, the select specimen of all that is worthy of love and admiration among men, to misery. I have pursued him even to that irremediable ruin. There he lies, white and cold in death. You hate me, but your abhorrence cannot equal that with which I regard myself. I look on the hands which executed the deed. I think on the heart in which the imagination of it was conceived, and long for the moment when these hands will meet my eyes, when that imagination will haunt my thoughts no more. Fear not that I shall be the instrument of future mischief. My work is nearly complete. Neither yours nor any man's death is needed to consummate the series of my being and accomplish that which must be done, but it requires my own. And do not think that I shall be slow to perform this sacrifice. I shall quit your vessel on the ice raft which brought me thither, and shall seek the most northern extremity of the globe. I shall collect my funeral pile, and consume to ashes this miserable frame, that its remains may afford no light to any curious and unhallowed wretch who would create such another as I have been. I shall die. I shall no longer feel the agonies which now consume me, or be the prey of feelings unsatisfied yet unquenched. He is dead who called me into being. And when I shall be no more, the very remembrance of us both will speedily vanish. I shall no longer see the sun or stars, or feel the wind play on my cheek. Light, feeling, and sense will pass away. And in this condition must I find my happiness. Some years ago, when the images which this world affords first opened upon me, when I felt the cheering warmth of summer, and heard the rustling of the leaves and the warbling of the birds, and these were all to me, I should have wept to die. Now it is my only consolation. Polluted by crimes and torn by the bitterest remorse, where can I find rest but in death? Farewell, I leave you, and in you the last of humankind whom these eyes will ever behold. Farewell, Frankenstein. If thou wert yet alive, and yet cherished a desire of revenge against me, it would be better satiated in my life than in my destruction. But it was not so. Thou didst seek my extinction, that I might not cause greater wretchedness. And if yet, in some mode unknown to me, thou hadst not ceased to think and feel, thou wouldst not desire against me a vengeance greater than that which I feel. Blasted as thou wert, my agony was still superior to thine, for the bitter sting of remorse will not cease to rankle in my wounds until death shall close them forever. But soon, he cried with sad and solemn enthusiasm, I shall die, and what I now feel will no longer be felt. Soon these burning miseries will be extinct. I shall ascend my funeral pile triumphantly, and exult in the agony of the torturing flames. The light of that conflagration will fade away. My ashes will be swept into the sea by the winds. my spirit will sleep in peace. Or if it thinks, it will not surely think thus. Farewell. He sprang from the cabin window as he said this, upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. He was soon borne away by the waves and lost in darkness and distance. The end of the story. The end of the story by Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin Shelley, which Project Gutenberg has included all of the surnames she possibly could have gone by. And you know what? I like that the creature gets... Yeah, but actually don't because of COVID. But it's like the thought that counts, probably. I like the fact that the creature got the last word, and it wasn't just a word, it was an incredibly long speech, and it was way better than anything Victor ever said. Oh, thank you guys for being here and listening to me and putting up with me opening the door 1,000 times. There you go. Ugh. My landlord will not put in a cat door, I have asked. Thank you all very much. It's been really interesting revisiting Frankenstein as an adult. Yes, more people should do that monologue, but they should attribute it to a different literary character. Because it's just... It doesn't actually mention anybody by name. But, they should be like, yeah, I'm auditioning for Zac Efron in High School Musical. Soon I will climb onto my funeral pyre and I'll fuck myself up and then I'll be dead and everyone will be happy. I gotta get my head in the game. I really gotta. I gotta kill myself. Well, bye. I think that's what High School Musical was about. I can't remember. I remember the song with the bouncing basketballs and the shoes squeaking. It was really fucking annoying. I didn't like it. But yeah, thank you all very much. It's been fun, and yes, tomorrow's Thursday? Yeah. Tomorrow, I guess, we'll start a Chuck Tingle, or maybe I'll read a couple of short stories just like in between, see how we go. Fantomas. What is that? I'm gonna have to Google it. Which, and if you don't know this already, it could change your life. You all you have to do is highlight text and right click on it, and it will say search Google for this text. I've learned lots of new words that way. Interesting. Actually, no, I'm still live in a video, so oh god, I'm Phantom of the fucking Opera. I do Hound of the Baskervilles. Or The Dying Detective. Oh yeah, but you guys wouldn't understand it, because, well, I mean, yeah, Phantom of the Opera was the first thing I thought of as well. I actually haven't heard of this, which is very cool. I thought I might do a couple of P.G. Wodehouse stories, a little bit of Raffles, the Gentleman Thief, a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, maybe The Dying Detective, the one where Holmes makes Watson believe that Holmes, is really genuinely dying and really upsets him, and it's all a trap to catch a poisoner. And he's like, ha ha ha, oh, Watson, you can't act, you piece of shit. And Watson's like, I thought you were really dying. I went to war. My brain is not great. Thomas. I'm gonna have to do a bit more research into that. Oh, the Scarlet Pimpernel. I mean, the books are good. Yeah, I thought I might do some Woodhouse stories, but like put on, do the bob wig and put on the little accent from the Queen to read it, because I don't think the New Zealand accent would really work. But yeah, the original Scarlet Pimpernel books, fantastic, but very, very much their time and place, Basically, all the rich, beautiful people are good, and all of the revolutionaries are ugly and stupid and bad. But yeah, okay, all right. I will. Oh, I had some beautiful illustrated volumes of the little Scarlet Pimpernel stories. I don't know where they are now. They're in somebody's garage. But yes, I'll find some Woodhouse. I'll find some Sherlock Holmes. I'll find some Baroness. I can't pronounce her name. Scarlet Pimpernel author. And I'll be doing some research into Fantomas, because it looks cool as hell. So yeah, thanks very much. Everyone say goodbye to Frankenstein and hello to miscellaneous items and Chuck Tingle. So stay safe, look after each other, wash your hands. I'm an angel and I mustn't be vexed. Bye everyone.